Okay, everyone, welcome to an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. To have a little bit of a special kind of roundup for you guys where I talk about the fact that I curated my own Neo Vintage Omega Trilogy. Now, for those of you that aren't aware, the Omega Trilogy does refer to the original release of a trio of watches that kind of covered all bases and baked in your own little 3-watch collection. You had the Speedmaster, the Seamaster, and the Railmaster. And they even commemorated this years and years later by actually doing a re-release, kind of a reissue, of course, upgraded and up-spec'd and elevated of those original 3 watches. And, it's a very cool idea. I love that idea. Again, just the concept of them. And these particular pieces all came from the early 2000s. And of course, were much more available and much cheaper. But I will say not any less satisfying to kind of curate and collect in terms of, the reasoning behind each piece, why I chose one versus another. Some of you are thinking I should have done all black dials, and that's fair enough because of course there is a black dial variation of this very Seamaster that is quite popular. This was one where I felt like it was a bit more signature for the 90s / early 2000s, as well as being a bit more just playful and fun and vibrant. And honestly, this electric blue dial is one of the best in Omega's history. So there are reasons for that, and there are, of course, other variations. Even when it comes down to the Speedmaster, you could choose another variation. You could choose the even the other variation of this particular watch that had a brushed bezel and that had a manual wind movement with a Hesselite crystal and no date. This is the automatic version. So again, there's still some variation there that you can play with. For me, this video has been a long time coming. I, of course, have already done individual reviews for each one of these pieces, but to talk about them as a whole, as a group, I think will be a whole lot of fun, especially considering I feel like there's another brand out there that's been around for quite some time that really followed this blueprint of the named 3-watch collection. And with that kind of cooking, I figured why not just talk about the concept with you guys before we get there. So with all that said, let's go ahead and zoom the camera out, get these pieces in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, now as a whole, these 3 watches, of course, represent the idea of a chronograph, a diver, and an everyday adventure watch, but they also do cover some other items. But before we dive in, very quickly, I also added Forstner flat link bracelets to all 3 of these models, of course, to give a bit of uniformity across the line, as well as parodying the original trilogy that was released, of course, on flat link bracelets. So it's paying an homage to that. These are Forstner flat link bracelets, and I think they do a great job with that. And they actually are recently came up with some toolless micro adjusting clasps, which I hope to upgrade these units to in the future. So that's just a little bit about these, but we'll start with the most simple watch here, which is a time-only 3-hander known as the Railmaster. Now, this watch is gorgeous, and some of you may say one and done. This is all you need, and you don't even have a date complication. So no date complication here. It's just going to be quite simple. You do get a display case back. Very nice. And technically, this is an Aqua Terra watch, more of a in Railmaster trim in terms of the, as you guys can see there, Aqua Terra, when this was originally released. So very cool watch. This is the 2503.52 Railmaster, 39 millimeters in diameter, 11.1 millimeters thick, which is the thinnest of the bunch here, and it is quite thin, guys. They do not make Omegas like this anymore. Bring thin Omegas back. Lug to lug, 46.5 millimeters, 20 millimeter lug width. You're getting a Dome Sapphire with an AR coating, and then with 150 meters of water resistance, or 500 feet with that screw down crown. I mean, do you really need anything else? I don't think so. It has an automatic Omega 2403 chronometer movement, which does have a 44-hour power reserve and beats at 3.5 hertz or 25,200 vibrations per hour, which is basically going to be 7 ticks a second versus 8 ticks a second with your more contemporary movements, but this is actually more in line with Omega of today, where pretty much all their movements are 3.5 hertz. They're just going to get more extended power reserves in their more modern executions. This also is the only watch of the three that has a modern coaxial escapement. So very, very cool piece. And again, for many people, this can be a one and done. This out of the three might be my most worn of the group. And a lot of that has to do with just how versatile it is, how slim it is, and ultimately the aesthetic is amazing. Like, this is just a perfect watch, no notes from that perspective, right? So very, very nice. Now, moving on to a little bit more complicated, we have a Seamaster. Now, this is the Seamaster Professional 300M. This is the 225580, and this is the electric blue dial, also in stainless steel, 41 millimeters, and quite thin at just 11.8 millimeters with a lug-to-lug of 47 millimeters. So it's going to be a little bit of a step up from that Railmaster, but of course with that thick diver's bezel there, it's just still going to render quite I think well balanced. You also do get this signature helium escape valve, which who knows will be disappearing soon, but I think this was a really dialed in variation of that. I think some of the more modern ones where they went to more of the cupcake style, I haven't been as enthusiastic about. I think this was a little bit more minimalist and felt more function forward and less over stylized. Now some of you are thinking, oh, less over stylized. Yes, I understand this trim. I'm talking about just the silhouette of this case, what it represents with the lugs, the twists. I mean, that's another thing that all of these watches have in common, which I really like, is they do have those signature twisted lugs, and it's just gorgeous. You're also going to get some extra protections here, like crown guards that are very guarded. Check that out. They are guarding that crown with very little gappage, if any. And then in terms of even the general aesthetic compared to the Railmaster, you're getting something that has a very clean look. You're getting the sword hands. And yeah, I think that's a nice tie-in, right? And you're going to go from more of a flat print, which, I mean, there's some 3D pop there in terms of the layers of Lume. Here, you're going to get it still printed, but now you're going to add this beautiful texturing, which in my studio lights really doesn't do this dial justice, guys. There's a lot of dimension to this timepiece that I really enjoy, but again, limited by the fact that I'm shooting this in the studio. This is again one of the most dynamic dials that are out there. You do get that date complication as well, which is quite nice. You're also going to double the water resistance. You're going from 150 with the Railmaster to now 300 meters, and it is a solid watch, a very handsome watch. And honestly, I don't see too many people pairing it with the flat link, but I don't know, there's something about it, especially with this polished bezel. Some of you are thinking this is just too blingy, too, you know, and I get that. But for me, fun summer watch, this really just checks that box. And again, when you're thinking about a 3-watch collection, you have to have some diversity there in terms of covering your bases, so you can have an excuse to wear each one of these. Now, this one is going to be probably the most impressive out of all 3 of the watches, but also probably the most polarizing because it's an automatic Speedmaster. It's the Broad Arrow Automatic 355150, and it's not everybody's cup of tea. It even has a sun ray dial and applied indices. And again, we're getting more complicated, right? When we have the date there, which is beautifully integrated at the 6 o'clock, and again, applied indices there. So very cool. And of course, you're going to have chronograph functionality. So very, very nice. Again, a bit limited by the studio here in terms of the real, getting more contrast reflecting off of the handset there, as you can see, and the indices. I promise you, out in the real world, this is going to be more than legible, but it is a bit challenging here to try to find the balance of showcasing the watch while not oversaturating, from the videography standpoint. Now, here you're going to have a 42 millimeter case, and the nice thing about all Speedmaster professional type of cases are that really it's only 42 millimeters because of the asymmetrical case. You can see here the bezel aligns and it's flush with the case side. Here, the bezel is not flush with the case side because the case slightly protrudes, creating these shear guards, which do a wonderful job, again, of protecting your crown and the pushers as well in this case, providing some extra protection anyway. So here you're going to have that 42 millimeter, but it's not really. It's more like a 40, right, or a 41 across the bezel in terms of that measurement. And then really this little extra side is going to be just crown guards, which normally people don't count crown guards in terms of the width. I mean, if you counted the crown guards on here, you'd say that this is some type of, instead of a 41, you're going to say that this is some crazy 47 millimeter watch or 45 millimeter watch, right? Which again is not the case in terms of your general proportions and the way that your eye is going to render this. I'm not talking about calipers. I'm talking about your eye in terms of the overall proportion. And then, I do love the sunray dial on here, which is actually quite hard to capture. So if you're on my Instagram, you see this watch, you might just think this has a standard black dial. Not the case. So for me, this is a very special watch. It does have an automatic movement, which is I know a no-no for many folks that do collect Speedmasters. This is the automatic Omega 3303. It's a chronometer. It also has a 4 hertz sweep. This and the Seamaster both have 4 hertz sweeps, which is nice. 55-hour power reserve though, so slightly extended over the Seamaster, and it's a handsome watch. It does the job. I really enjoy this piece, and I think in terms of flowing with this flat link bracelets, yes, it absolutely does flow beautifully. And then the thickness at 14 millimeters isn't really bad. Honestly, there are dive watches that are only 200 meters of water resistant that are 14 millimeters. So when you think about an automatic chronograph here, this is quite impressive. And although this is probably the least in-house in terms of the movements of the group with that 3303 movement, it's actually derived from hotter horology. Like this comes from more upstream versus, the 2892 base here, or the, also 2892 kind of based movement there from ETA, which of course are considered higher end movements. This one, again, has a bit of a more elevated background in terms of the other watches you could have found this movement in. And of course, there's full details in those full reviews, but I did want to kind of just talk about these three watches at a different capacity, more as a collection, as a group of three. And then when you think about the money you can save, I mean, really, you can find examples of all these watches for, around $3,500, sometimes less, sometimes a lot more, depending on, what attributes you're looking for in terms of the completeness of box and papers and the condition of the bracelets, how many links it has, like all those things. I will say that in terms of bracelets, I wasn't happy with the bracelets with any of these. The good thing is that you can see there's quite a few options. It's the fact that Forstner makes flat links for these means that they make other ones for them that work as well. So they do work out. And again, all three of these three watches, I'm mainly a big Seiko collector, and I take pride in my Seiko watches, but there is something to be said about the elevated feeling of a neo vintage watch, right? Something that is not right out of a boutique that you can just buy at any time, something that you have to hunt for and curate. Again, like you're choosing which reference to pair with which bracelet, which reference to pair with which other reference in terms of the parallels between these three particular pieces with, you know, the broad arrow and sword hand, kind of more military aesthetic. So, yeah, I do enjoy that. And again, these are from my era in terms of the watches that when I was really getting to learn about Omega, that seemed very much out of reach in my youth, in the, in the early 2000s, late 90s. These are the watches that really excited me. And, now to go back as an adult, acquire these three, it's just been a very special experience. So with that said, let's actually just start rotating through these and cover how they wear. Okay, guys, now I only have two wrists, so I'm going to take my time through here, but check that out. Absolutely beautiful, beautifully thin. And yeah, I think this looks fantastic on the wrist. I even prefer this to the more recent Railmaster, although, hey, I wouldn't say no to it. Don't get it twisted. I would not say no to a brand new modern Railmaster, but I will say I love this, and it doesn't leave me wanting more. Or it definitely doesn't leave me needing more. But, it'd be nice. I wouldn't turn it away, if I had the funds. But I think this is just a gorgeous piece. It's, again, the thinnest of the bunch, the simplest, the most understated, and I think has a really great story for those people that are interested in wristwatches. I think this is just a really fun transitional piece here. I mean, kind of being the birth of the Aqua Terra line, while it's also paying tribute to the Railmaster of the past. So very, very cool piece, especially on this. And you guys can see this isn't in perfect condition in terms of the watch itself or the bracelet, because it does get quite a bit of wear, although I do try to keep everything looking very, very good. I don't want them to look like they're abused. This isn't a G-Shock or anything, right? I'm not like purposely getting this to put it to its limits, but it's a watch that I really do enjoy wearing. With that said, let's swap out now to the Seamaster. Okay, guys, check it out. Yes. Seamaster goodness. And then you're getting those vibes. This definitely is giving you those late 90s, early 2000s, all of the good feelings about the Seamaster. And it is a handsome piece. Again, I do wear this quite frequently as well. I mean, I wear all three of them pretty frequently. But this is a fun one. This one ends up getting pitted against a lot of other competition, though, because I have some other blue dial dive watches. You guys know from my channel, that's kind of my main genre. I love a good blue dial diver, and this is absolutely one of the best that you can get. And look at the thinness. 300 meters of water resistance, guys, and under 12 millimeters thick. This is thinner than the modern Rolex Submariner, and it feels thinner. And of course, with its 41 millimeter width, it's going to even wear that thinness. It's going to look even thinner, and it feels just thin and flowy and of the sea. It just, again, there's something about the scallops on the bezel action. There's just something to this aesthetic, the wave dial. It just has a very, very fun and organic theme that just ties in beautifully. So, love this watch. It's one that if I wasn't so heavily invested into blue dial dive watches that I really enjoy, this one would get more wear time because it would have less competition. Out of these three, this one has the most cross competition. I mean, especially from my brand that I love, Seiko. I will say that this is just, again, one of the best blue dial divers you can get out there. And this could even be a one and done as well, because you could also get the black dial variation, black dial, black bezel, and that could easily be your singular one wristwatch. And I wouldn't argue with it if that's what somebody wanted to do, but for me, this electric blue is just that much more special. So let's now dive in to the Speedmaster. Okay, as you guys can see, the speedy looking gorgeous. This one, again, technically the most impressive, the most complicated, but it is for good reason. I mean, I really love this piece. The broad arrow hands, it just has this beautiful mid-century aesthetic that, especially when paired to this, you know, flat link bracelet, I think really tells a story. And of course, Speedmaster is some of the most collected wristwatches. You know, not that these other ones weren't as collected. I mean, come on, you love a Railmaster, obviously not as popular, more niche. The Seamaster is huge, especially with the Bond connection there. But yes, this right here is a fun piece to talk about with other Speedmaster lovers, because it is so off brand for what most people think of when they think about Speedies and Speedmasters. They think, of course, of manual wind watches with Hesselite crystals and non-hacking. You know, like there's just so much to that space that's predetermined, and then to have something for me that is really out of left field that on paper shouldn't be desirable and shouldn't belong, can exist, and for me hit this many of the right notes, right? This is for me the anti-Speedy, you know, for the people that maybe haven't been satisfied with the specs of Speedmasters of old. Of course, I think the latest Speedmaster, it checks a lot of those boxes now, because you do have hacking seconds hand finally, and you do have better bracelets and everything like that. But I'll say this one for me is just special, and it's the reason, it's actually the watch that kicked off this whole collection. I sourced this one through Belmont. It was originally supposed to be a review piece, but it was in such fine condition that it had me hooked. After that, after this, the inexplicable connection I made with it, I just wanted to build upon that. I wanted more of this feeling of, wow, this is an Omega that is under the radar. It's a Speedmaster that's under the radar, which is weird, right? It's different. Applied indices, like this is the type of watch that has the things that people who haven't bought Speedmasters complain about, right? Like, hey, I'd like applied indices. I'd like a bit of texture, some sun ray pattern to the dial. I'd like a date complication. I'd like it to be automatic, sapphire, chronograph, right? For the longest time, those watches didn't have chronograph rated movements. So I'm sorry, chronometer rated. Ooh, it's early. Sorry. Chronometer grade, right? So that's all of these are chronometer grade, which is great in terms of timekeeping. And, yeah, they keep great time even years and years later in 2025. So, although again, these are of neo vintage elk in terms of their, of course, guys, this is a reflecting board off, on the back. Again, it's helping fill, because if it wasn't there, right, it'd just be black and you wouldn't be able to see any of the details. So that's what that is. Don't be alarmed. It's a reflecting board. It's doing its job, and it's helping fill the reflection, because we're in a studio. We're not we're not outdoors. We're not in some type of other situation. And man, I ran a little long talking about this one versus the other two, but there was more to talk about. So let's get this off the wrist, set up for some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Hey, some good old-fashioned C3, and yes, like you would expect, the dive watch is booming. I mean, even by today's modern standards, this is an outstandingly legible watch in the dark. Then, of course, coming up right behind it, a beautiful Railmaster, kind of fits within that everyday adventure field space, and it does give you some nice low light legibility as well. Whereas the Speedy, not known for its Lume, still not, but you do get all the orientation you need, right? You know where 12 o'clock is, and you know what time it is. But one thing I always like to work in is going to be a bit of a low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it's nice with these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And as you guys can see, they have their own a bit of play. Of course, those lugs, the transitions between brushed and polished, that is going to serve each one of these watches. But then you have different things. You have that matte dial on the Railmaster. You have that sun ray electric wave blue. I mean, everything's going on with that dial, and I love it. It's everything. And then of course you do have a more subtle satin sunray dial that is almost blink and you'll miss it on the Speedy there. And yeah, these are just a lot of reflective surfaces. I get it. It's not for everyone. And again, I didn't collect these watches to be the ultimate tool watch trio. It is a dedication, a tribute to the, to the Trilogy. And I wear these with care. I don't baby them. They're not in a vault. They don't deserve to be. But they absolutely do give me that sweet spot of, they're not so outrageously collectible where I can't wear them. I couldn't replace them if I needed to. It would be a little tough to, of course, find clean examples, especially in the Railmaster. These were not super, super popular. It's tough to find them, especially in this 39 millimeter size. Actually, it's even harder to find them in the old 36 millimeter range. But even the 39 millimeters are still relatively, in comparison to the Seamaster and the Speedmaster. So yeah, this has been a long one, guys. So we'll get the lights back on here and get into, just why did I do that? Why did I collect these? Why did I make this video? What's the point? The point is, guys, watches are cool. Omega watches are very cool, and they're attainable, and I think that's kind of wild. I think a lot of people will see an Omega watch and think, ooh, one day, right? But I will say there are affordable options that do show an elevated level of just info and knowledge on the game, and you can get so much from these pieces without necessarily, again, it's not about just the price point. There's a nostalgia to each one of these pieces. Some of them reach further back than others, and some of them, I think, I would love to see Omega recreate the Seamaster 300 with an electric blue dial. I think that would be wonderful, especially since they brought the wave dial back. I think it's only a matter of time before we see that return. I think it's only a matter of time before we see a more standard matte black Railmaster return as well. I think it's only a matter of time before we see a more wearable automatic Speedmaster. So this is a little love letter to a brand that I've respected from afar for many, many years and always felt it was kind of unattainable or out of reach. But I will say, when you're starting to do the math in terms of, modern day prices, there's tons of value here. And not everybody wants to. I was one of them. I still don't gravitate towards pre-owned. I wait until it is, straight up. Again, it's when it's considered vintage or neo-vintage, then it's not just used to me. But if I was smarter and less emotional about it, I would absolutely be looking for pre-owned pieces where I can get it. I guess the YouTube channel does help me get discounts on newer stuff. So that does help, because I can negotiate. I can, I'll do a video review if you can help me out with shipping, with better pricing, this and that. So yeah, I guess first world problems there. But I love these pieces, and let me know what you think down in the comments below. I'd love for this to be a conversation. I know that I rambled on this one, but it's a video that's been a long time coming, and I'm happy to finally share with you guys. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please hit like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.